So yeah, the sea's been calling. Well, not exactly calling because I pretty much can't swim. But you get the idea. I'm setting out to follow my dream. To find the One Piece. And become King of the Pirates! All I need is a loyal crew. Nothing about 10 men should do. Well, 10 men and the bird. It's not gonna be easy. The ocean is pretty big and kind of dangerous. So what do you say? Are you with me? Mutiny.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
My name is Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies and TV shows. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at One Piece, Season 1. A seafaring world, a young pirate sets out his crew to attain the title of Pirate King and to discover the mythical treasure known as One Piece. Well, I hate to tell you, anime has had such a cursed relationship with live action. Everything from Dragon Ball Evolution, some of the Death Note live action things I've seen, even just from Netflix themselves, they did a terrible job with that. There's a lot, okay? I mean, let's be honest. Cowboy Bebop, I try not to think about ever because it just, melts my brain. There's a lot of terrible... Anime and live action have a terrible relationship, and I'll be honest with you, for a while there, I thought it could never be done, right? Comic books have a better relationship with live action than I think anime does. Anime always has such an exaggeration about it, a sense of style that aren't the same as like American Western comics have been able to adapt into live action. And, again, I think for a while there, I thought it wasn't possible. And then I watched One Piece, and I got to tell you guys, this is probably one of my favorite shows of the year. And not just because of an anime, I think it's a really well done show that knows exactly what it is and doesn't shy away from it. And gave me something, again, I never thought possible, an engaging One Piece show. I had a phenomenal time. I'm totally a One Piece addict now after watching this. I get it. I finally get it. And as for me, someone who has read some of the series, up until, for those familiar with the Water 7 arc, is kind of where I kind of drifted off. I stopped reading for whatever reason. I'm back in it now. I'm full-fledged back in it. I'm having a great time. I can't wait to talk about this. Adam, talk to me. Did this do it for you? Was this the one? Was this the One Piece?
Yeah, this. I guess it is the One Piece. It really did. It's great. It's very well done. Quite surprising. Maybe that is the reason why it did so well, is because of how surprising it is. But I think it's phenomenal. I think it was great. Yeah,
and for a series where everyone's seen art of One Piece and the character designs and everything, it has no business being as good as it is. It really doesn't. And I think if anything, out of all the anime I've ever seen adapted, this would be one of the hardest ones to adapt.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And it's not. And it worked. And I'm still blown away by the decisions that were made, which I think we'll talk about a lot about that. I think a lot of the decision making is really what did excellent for this show. Julie, how about you? I've been trying to get you to watch One Piece with me for years, and we've never gotten there. And then you decided to watch this with me. What'd you think?
Well, here's the thing. We did start to watch One Piece years ago, and I did not really enjoy it. I just remember the one character... I'm totally blanking on his name. The one who becomes a Marine.
Kobe, yeah.
Kobe. I just remember his character in the anime being so irritating. So I think maybe I only watched like 2 or 3 episodes and we never went back. And you keep saying like, oh, One Piece this and One Piece that. I'm like, whatever. And even with the live action coming out, you're showing me the trailers. I'm like, it's fine. I'll watch it. I'll give it a try. But I had so much fun with this show. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm excited for season 2. I have my favorite characters. So I was really impressed with what they were able to do. Because again, I had zero expectations for this. So I'm very, very happy with the finished product that we got. And you could tell the love and care that was put into creating it.
Right. And I think if you are a One Piece fan, you're going to eat this up. You're going to devour this. You're going to have a great time. There are some changes from the manga and the anime, and it is what it is. And the changes that I feel like that they made did make sense from what I remember reading and, seeing myself personally. But the bigger question I'll ask is, if you're not an anime fan, are you going to enjoy One Piece? I think so. I think there is something there for you. I truly do. And I think this is maybe one of the better, I would say, introductions to anime, if you really wanted to look at it that way, because it is zany, it is crazy, it doesn't take itself so seriously, and I think that's maybe what its charm is, because it really does draw you in. Adam, what do you think of that, as far as being, if someone doesn't like anime, do you think they're going to have a good time with this?
I mean, talk about being able to reach a wider audience, because this just I feel like this hits all of those beats where it's such an enjoyable show when it's not anime. It really isn't, because it's not animated at all. So
No,
it's this is great.
Right, and it's funny because I think as people, we always have an interest with pirates. So remember the Pirates of the Caribbean phase. We still go crazy when those movies come out, and that's super exciting. And One Piece is totally different from that. It's not at all like a Pirates of the Caribbean. It's more, maybe it is though in some ways. It's got the journey aspect, the fun adventure, but it's got this zany thrill that nothing else has. It's such a charm, and I want to say it's goofy, but goofy's probably not the right word.
I mean, there's no other manga or anime like it either, so
it's so distinct.
It's no surprise. Yeah,
it's so distinct what it is, and it's self-aware. It understands what it is. So, some of the acting you could probably take it or leave it. It depends on how you look at it. I think that's kind of how you have to go into this, which we'll talk about that a little bit too. But Julie, as far as someone who doesn't like anime, do you think this will be something they'll grab onto? Do you think fans will enjoy this? Because if we're looking at social media, it seems like people are liking it a lot.
It seems like everybody's watching, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are watching it who had no previous connection to the anime, the manga, or anime at all. So I think, I don't think you need to like anime to watch the show. Again, I like anime. I don't watch it all the time.
Right.
And I really, really enjoyed the show. And the stuff that they were able to get away with in the translation, I think it's just amazing. And even like you said, I feel like this is itching that pirate need that we've been wanting in pop culture for a while. I remember when I think the last trailer for this dropped, the trailer for the new season of Our Flag Means Death also dropped, which is another pirate-based show. And I'm it's the season of the pirates. Because Pirates of the Caribbean was such a cultural phenomenon for years. So to be able to sail the high seas again with some zany characters was definitely fun. And what I loved about the show too is we have all of these different pirate crews, and they are so unique stylistically in their own way. But it still just fits in this world. You have this hot pink pirate ship with hearts and stuff like that all over the place, and then a circus themed one, and then the cats, or the black cats. It was just so cool. So I'm really excited to see, as we continue forward, the different crews that they're going to encounter.
I want to talk about one thing. So there's an interview with Ichiro Oda, who's the creator of One Piece. And if anyone knows the history of One Piece, it's been in developmental hell for a while. There's been a live action talk where they were trying to work on this years and years ago, and it didn't work out. And Ichiro Oda is very connected to the source material. As a creator, he's latched on. Okay. A lot of people usually sell the rights to their series, and that's the end of it. They'll make it into whatever abomination they want, and that's the end of it. He's like, no, this is his magnum opus. He wants it to be perfect when it comes out. And his direct supervision, I think, has a lot to do with this, because there's also an interview with the director. He's one of the creators, Stephen Medea. It was on a Twitter forum. I read it, and he posted a long article just talking about what they're trying to do when adapting One Piece. And there's a couple things that really struck me, and I think this is why this show is so incredibly successful. The first thing is the world. the world is one of the most important things about this show, and they went above and beyond, in my opinion, with what you normally do with a TV show. For the most part, I would say about 90% of everything you're seeing is real, as far as the ships, the settings, everything is actually physically there, and that's incredibly impressive to me. The Bariotti, the ship where they meet Sanji, they built that ship. They built that outside deck where they're all hanging out, in the inside where they're the dining area. Luffy's the Go Merry, they actually built like the whole front of the ship, and like those sets are there, and that adds so much weight to this world where these people are actually interacting on something, right? They're not on like some green screen CGI place going, oh no, look what's coming, and it actually adds a lot of weight and depth, I think, to this world. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is Ichiro Oda said he was open to changing some of the characters to some extent, but they have to still have the essence of those characters. Like maybe they don't have to necessarily look like them, but as long as they maintain the essence of how I wrote those characters and what they're meant to be, people will latch on to them. And by God, they do, because I think I like every single one of these characters. And I will say, arguably to some extent, I think they've improved upon some of them. Usopp, I thought, is incredibly annoying, and I do like Usopp. I like Usopp later down the line when he gets a little more courage and he becomes, more interesting. But they tone down like the cowardliness. Like he's still a coward though. He still maintains the essence of like, oh, I'm not gonna fight you. And he, like the end of the series, he's running away from the fisherman. He's running away from him in the forest, and he like accidentally kind of beats him. That's funny, but it's less annoying, right? I think there's something to be said there. And Sanji, for example, Sanji is the ladies' man who's gushing over every single girl nonstop, and it's really annoying to some extent in the anime. The live action, he has a charm more about him, right? He's more like just trying to like, he's like failure at flirting with Nami. Like he's constantly like flirting with Nami here and there in the ship, but it's not all the time where it's incessant. It's like just enough to like we understand the character, and that's what's done really well. Like they take these mannerisms of the characters and turn them down a little bit, where they're still those characters, but they work in the context of live action. What did you think of that, Adam? Because I saw you nodding your head a couple of with some of the changes, like with Usopp and stuff like that.
Yeah, if anything, it humanizes them more, because
So.
they're absolutely, because these characters, they've all been so animated, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better word. But now it just adds like these could be real, people put into these situations.
Right, and I think a lot of that too is like Luffy as a character. If you look at him as from the context of you're just reading the manga, right, for the most part, and I'm talking about these early chapters. Let's not talk about the future and stuff like that. The early chapters, he's really just a guy who yells a lot and is like kind of stupid almost to some extent, and accidentally falls into everything. In the show, they take a much better approach to Luffy, making him more likable and more like kind of like just optimistic and kind of like that. Like, yeah, it could be a little cringy at times where he's just like yelling at the top of his lungs, like, oh, I'll do this for you, like stuff like that. But at the same time, I think that work, they're still humanizing the character, kind of like what Adam said. Like we're kind of seeing some of his backstory, and we're seeing a little bit more of like why he wants to be the pirate king. And I think they do a better job at that. What do you think, Julie? Do you think they added a little more dimension to the character there?
Absolutely. Yeah, the pure optimism inside of Luffy is just great. And it's like almost borderline naivety. And I just think too, when they're at the restaurant, they order this big meal and it's time to pay up, and he writes like, IOU on it or whatever.
Right.
Like, what the hell, man? You got to pay this. He goes, I will. Once I get all my treasure, I'm going to be king of the pirates and we'll be settled. No big deal. Like, it just doesn't even faze him, because he has no doubt in his mind that he will accomplish his goal. And it's so sweet. Even down to him like ordering a glass of milk in the restaurant. I love his character. Yeah, can he be almost borderline like too optimistic at times? Sure, but again, at the end of the day, that's just who he is. And it does humanize him, especially seeing his background and where he came from and his compassion towards others. Like, because at the end of the day, yes, he has these goals for himself, but he knows he's not going to get there without his friends, and he truly sees them as friends.
Right.
Even when Nami has her, betrayal. As that's
it's a betrayal. Yeah, she betrays them.
Well, I just don't even know if we're going spoiler route. Like,
fine.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He's going to help her whether she joins them again or not, because he cares about her as a person on a human level.
Right.
So I thought that was really great, and I like how we did get pretty much like one episode where it at least flashed back to each member of the crew's backstory. So you can learn more about them and know why they are the way they are. So I think that was really successful.
What'd you think of that, Adam? I thought the delivery for backstory was really excellent here. And I feel like that's a hard thing to do, especially when you have you have 5 characters. You have to kind of delve into the backstories a little bit. We get these like really excellent snippets of their development, and I never at all felt like we've watched some other shows on this channel. I always felt like the pace was continuing to go. What did you think of that?
It's so crazy seeing it done so well.
Successfully,
Because like we've been suffering for so long with so many other shows and movies that we watch where we're just given no context to anything. But this one was able to handle it so well with 5 different characters.
And it's
like
quick.
It's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not overindulgent. It's not trying to like just make up for time. It's really giving you, this is the character like Zoro. This is exactly why he is the way he is, why he wants to be the best swordsman. Boom, 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 done. You clearly understand it. Maybe it's a little simple, sure, but that's okay. It makes sense because it's what you're doing with the character afterwards that's so interesting.
It's honestly like in comparison, that's all I really needed.
Right.
Like to keep on going, especially with, the massive amount of monster that One Piece is right now. Like, I'm okay with just knowing this because there's so many more things we have to get to that I'm looking more forward to seeing.
Right, and they don't give you everything, right? I think they give you just enough to like where you're endeared to the character. Like Oda really knows how to write character origin stories to where you're sympathetic to all these characters and you kind of want them to succeed, especially together. And it leaves the door open for the future for other interactions to happen later because we don't know necessarily everything about the character, but we know just enough for us to be engaged and want to see them continue.
And the way it was done too was just so masterful because it wasn't like it was a whole episode of their backstory. It was intercut with something that was happening at the same time that was able to connect you to what was happening. Because I feel like in any other media, like we talked about that when we were like, oh, here's the flashback episode, and then it just grinds the pacing to a halt. Where it just kept the story moving forward. And even Luffy, like we got his backstory probably over a couple different episodes because it mattered, it had to align with the story. Like we got a lot in the Sanji episode. We got more backstory with Luffy too to really see the parallels between those characters.
And that's masterful too. And
that's
not something that's done in the manga at all. And that's masterful. That's done here.
Right. And it goes back to what Adam said too about humanizing them, because then you can see not only more about that character, but how they can connect to another person of the crew or to another. So it was just so well thought out, so purposefully done. And without sacrificing pacing.
Right. And I know there's been some contention with some of the way the story's been written. There's the One Piece bloat has always been a discussion among fans. I know in the fan base where the anime stretches things out for a very long time, even more so than the manga. And the manga even has some things that are maybe a little too stretched out even for Oda. I feel like this show does a really good job of just condensing what I need to know and not making me feel intimidated by what I'm witnessing on screen, where I think just ingesting One Piece in general can sometimes be a little bit of a burden on people, a little bit intimidating because there is a lot there. But the show does an excellent job just introducing us to this world. And again, what they're able to do here, I think it's just really fantastic. This is really just excellent script writing. Now, Adam, how familiar? I know you watched a little bit of One Piece to some extent. There were some changes that were made as far as introducing other characters earlier on. But I have to tell you, I think it did a really good job, again, keeping that momentum going because the Marines became much more of a nuisance to the Straw Hat Pirates at this point, and they're kind of introduced more early on, and we're introduced to a backstory with who General Garp is, who we don't meet, I think, until like chapter 100 and some odd crazy, like something later. And even then it's not revealed who he actually is. But I think by taking these points and introducing him early, again, they're not changing anything, but I think they're enhancing the story. What do you think of that, Adam? Because I think that's the correct way to adapt something, not necessarily changing it, but adapting it slightly differently, if that makes any sense.
I guess in comparison to how like the anime and the manga, where they've all, already been written, they were kind of they didn't have anything to go off of.
Right.
At least with this, now we can kind of be like, okay, now with this character, I know he's going to show up again. Let's put him in here, sprinkle him here now. And it just enhances everything, I think. It really just enhanced the entire experience, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too, and I think you'll agree too, a lot of it has to just understanding the source material. Because again, nothing is really changed, I would argue. I think even if I'm looking at the manga, I mean, there's some things that are omitted or slightly readjusted, but it's for the betterment of the show. Nothing felt like it was a hindrance to anything that they were trying to do here.
No, yep. Agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, and again, I won't get too into it because I think a lot of people who are watching One Piece, I hate to say, a lot of them maybe aren't actually fans of the anime or the manga. I think a lot of casuals will just be kind of flipping through Netflix, seeing it up there and being like, what the hell is this? And watching it. And that's kind of the audience that they're just trying to introduce to. It's just a shame sometimes because some of the discourse I've seen online is just so toxic with the anime fans and, just casual fans. Let people enjoy something new. This is something new to them. Let them have a good time and enjoy it. You don't have to be so gatekeeping, if you will. This just, sorry, my own little banter there on the side. But going into some of the visuals here, I think it's crazy how some of this really works in the context of the show. You have a man that carries a sword in his mouth and fights with two other swords, but it looks completely natural in this world. You have them yelling out their finishers, which the show does cleverly address. I think at some point, Luffy's like, oh yeah, all great guys, you yell out their finishing moves. And then you have Sanji doing it later on in the series when he's kicking somebody. The show has such a clever...
Zoro goes, no, they don't.
Yeah, Zoro's like, no, they don't. And the show has such a clever self-awareness to it. I really do think they do a really good job with that. And I think that's what's going to entertain a lot of people. Because again, it does look ridiculous. Like, especially Zoro, I think for the most part, is one of the harder characters. You would think he looks the craziest, right? Because he's got a sword in his mouth and he's fighting with two different swords. But it completely makes sense within the world. I think it really does, especially when he fights Mihawk later on. That's such an anime scene with them fighting, and Mihawk has like a little dagger, and he's like, "Oh, you don't hunt." Was it guppies with the giant sword, whatever he says. He has some kind of cool line.
Something.
Yeah, something crazy, whatever it is. But he ends up fighting him. Like, that's so anime. And you have Mihawk like slicing a ship in half and stuff like that. Like, that's anime, but it makes sense within this world. And I think that, again, I can't stretch to you how much of an accomplishment that is. The main thing I guess we could talk about is some of the CG. Now, the one thing I think they did here, the one thing in One Piece that they did here is the cinematography is really on point for me. I think it can be a little nauseating sometimes. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of like very close-ups to the camera. So like you could be sitting there and then Luffy's face is like right in your face for like a long shot of the time. And they do that a lot. Adam, what did you think of that style? Did you like that? Do you think it was a little... I'm trying to find how my relationships with it kind of hit or miss a little bit at times.
I don't know. It's like they were trying to give it that animated feel
like
to it.
Like a manga panel, for example.
Yes, yes. I don't think it was very necessary, especially, I guess, if we're trying to draw a line between how things, or, I guess, animated and not.
Right.
I don't know. It was all right, though. It's I do agree. It became a little, like, overbearing at some points. I kind of, like, wanted maybe a little pullback at certain areas.
Like, pull it back a little bit. Let me see a little more of the actor there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But again, then I say that, but then at the same time, I look at it and I reflect back, and I'm like, oh, well, the momentum's still going so well when you're doing this style because they are conversating back and forth just within a panel like that, and it does work to some extent. So again, I guess I find myself just kind of like my film critic brain is like, that's bad. You should stop doing that. But the entertainment portion of me is like, okay, I think you're onto something there. What did you think of that, Julie? Did you like that style, that frantic kind of zoom in style of shooting the characters?
I think they were trying to replicate like the quickness of animation at times. And I think did the super close-ups bother me? Not really. I mean, sometimes it kind of take me out of what was happening, maybe. But overall, I wouldn't say it was too bothersome. I actually really appreciate some of the camera work they were able to do because, again, Luffy can stretch his limbs, but it's a lot to do that all the time. So I feel like they were really clever in the ways that they were able to do like really actually wide shots. And they did some movie magic where his limbs did look almost slightly longer than your average person.
Right.
And the choreography was masterfully filmed. I was, really impressed with that. Even how they filmed some of the settings too, like the sea towns and the ships, like, Yeah, I mean, I can get over the quick, the zoom ins, but I think that's what they were trying to replicate because I'm sure even, panels in the manga, you get a quick up close of the character and then you cut, but it's more jarring when it's on, camera.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hurdles I always felt like in this show would be the main character, Luffy himself. I think is a major hurdle of a character to get over, is you have a man who's made of rubber. And the show, it does something where sometimes he's just fighting casually, and there's points where I'm like, well, why isn't he using more of his like rubber abilities, right? Why isn't he stretching and hitting this character, or being a little more like, like going ahead and grabbing someone or something? Did you ever feel that, Adam? Because I felt like that a few times, but I understand why they had to do that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I know what he can do. It's like, so why isn't he doing it?
Right. And I guess you can argue like it's early on in the adventure. Maybe he doesn't have all that experience and everything
Maybe.
like that. Maybe. But at the same time, they did what they could do, right? I mean, they tried to hit like the greatest hits of Luffy, the Gum Gum Bell where he does the headbutt, and, the Gum Gum Pistol, which is his like big move where he punches people. Even the end, there were some points where I felt like I want a little more oomph out of some of the rubber abilities, and maybe we'll get that more when we get into the next seasons of the show, which it is renewed for those out there. In case you're curious, it was officially confirmed. I want a little more impact behind some of those moves, and that was one of my critiques, I think, with the final fight where it's Luffy versus Arlong, and I thought the fight was fine. I wish it went on a little bit longer. In the manga, it's like this big like brawl that him and Arlong have, and it felt like a snapshot, which I guess unfortunately is part of like the way the show has its pacing going a little bit, where I want a little more of a struggle fighting him and a little more like aggressiveness, like when Luffy does like the Gum Gum Gatling and he's like throwing all these fists at Arlong. It just didn't look that impactful. Did any of you guys feel that way with some of it? Or like even like the fall of Arlong Park? Like it was kind of just like, okay, I felt like I wanted something a little more destructive.
I guess it was just the time building to it because again, they're going to have to condense because this is a massive piece of work. So where in the anime and the manga, I think there's more time spent in Arlong Park and the fall of Arlong. But it didn't bother me too much. I felt like it was a good enough fight. There was the rage behind Luffy that I think,
I don't know. I guess I understood where they were going with it, and what we could have gotten.
Right.
I guess because I have watched that that arc.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess understanding the limitations because you can only do so much.
Right, and I want it to look like it does in this show, right? I don't want it to be an overall CGI mess of nonsense going on. Where why didn't you just animate it to begin with? I want to see what they can do with live action, and that goes for a lot of the show. Like I said, I talked about the sets all being practical. The makeup work is fantastic in this too. Yeah, the fishmen look creepy as hell. Yeah, they do. Okay, but you know what? They're fishmen. What did you expect them to look like? Arlong looks perfect in a weird way. At first I was a little hesitant about his design, but then when I saw him and why they decided to like make his nose look more like a saw blade versus how he kind of looks in the manga and the anime, it made sense to me. They actually went off a genetic species of the sawfish and made him look that way. No expense was kind of spared with the detail in the show. I think the details are very important to Oda, and you could tell that nothing was passed unless he approved it. And I'm really mesmerized by a lot of what the show was able to do. Even its character introductions, I really enjoyed the way they do it. They would have a wanted poster kind of fly up, and then we would be introduced to like the next big bad guy. One of the bigger characters, and I know Julie's favorite character, Buggy the Clown, kind of got redeemed by a lot of fans because as someone who's read the manga and seen the anime, I was never really a huge fan of Buggy, and I kind of get it. He's kind of cool now, and he's really funny, and they did a really good job. You could tell the actor playing him, he did an exceptional job. Like, he really embodied that character. I heard he was the only actor who went to like the audition wearing makeup, actually, to be Buggy the Clown, and they like fell in love with him when he showed up. But even his character, he's a chop man. That's ridiculous when you really think about it. Like a man who gets cut up into pieces and he could put himself back together and rearrange his body parts, and he just throws his body parts at you as like his attack. It's so stupid. But again, when I'm watching this show, I think it did a really good job. And again, condensing even those arcs, like Adam said, like I'm aware of some of the deeper stuff that happened in that town. But the fun part is, even though they don't tell you everything that happens in like the original manga, like they don't adapt it straightforward. If you're interested enough, you can go back and read the manga and then enjoy some of those extra details that maybe were missed out in live action, because what they focus on are the most important parts of the show. And I think, again, that is why it is so incredibly successful. Not just that, everyone's perfectly cast. Adam, who was your favorite casting, do you think, in the show? If you could pick one person.
I think I would say it's got to be between either Luffy or Zoro.
Yeah.
I think they both did a phenomenal job, honestly.
Yeah, and Aki Godoy, he really just he really embodies Luffy. And I know Ichiro Oda, there's like a famous thing that Netflix put out recently. It's become very popular where he's like crying when he met him, and he was like, "You are Luffy. You're the person I create. Like you're him. Like you're literally him." And I get that. I get that 100% because he definitely embodies the spirit of Luffy to a perfect degree. And then Makinu, I think that's how you say his name. He's the actor that plays Zoro. Funny enough, he's actually like an actor that's been in a lot of anime adaptations. And I was kind of looking up, I'm like, where have I seen you before? He was in Full Metal Alchemist. He played Scar, for those who know, in two movies of that. That's impressive. He was in the Rurouni Kenshin series. He played Kenshin's brother-in-law. Knights of the Zodiac. I think he was also in one of the JoJo live action movies. Like he's not shy to the anime adaptations, but here he did a phenomenal job. And I got to give him credit. I think he really nailed the stuff with the choreography, which I don't know, maybe that was just his personal experience from some of his other work that he's done, but he did a really phenomenal job with that choreography. Julie, how about you? What was like your favorite actor if you had to pick one besides Buggy the Clown, which I already knew you were going to say?
Besides Buggy, who's better than him? It would be Buggy, then Zoro, and then probably Luffy for sure. Because Luffy's the heart of the show. You can't go past that. But I really did like Zoro. I like his interactions with Luffy. And then later on, his back and forth with Sanji was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? Usopp as well.
Yeah.
I love hearing him, retell the events of a previous episode, but, highlighting him as the hero. So that was always fun, where, he's usually just hiding behind someone the whole time. So he was a really fun character.
Yeah, and then that's what I have to talk about. Like, those are some of the changes, too. Like, Usopp, they changed his character, and then they got rid of his nose. I know people were very disappointed, but I dare you to look up live-action Usopp nose, and you tell me that how that would have worked in live action, because it's incredibly disturbing if you see a long-nosed Usopp in live action. No one wants that, okay? So if you do want that, I'm sorry, you're wrong. There's no way. But the casting in the show is perfect. Like, everybody that they cast is literally that character. Like, they really spared like no expense with like finding the right actors. One of my favorite ones, which wasn't even a main character, was Chef Zeph. I thought was really well cast. Like, he literally looked like he walked out of the manga panel. That guy, like, he really was like Zeph, and I thought that was great. And even his interactions with like Sanji and everything like that. Again, the show is just phenomenal. I know we're gloating about it, but I can't recommend it to you enough. So, with all that being said, I think we're ready to give it our final scores, guys. I'm gonna give One Piece Season 1 a 9.8 out of 10.
Gama Gam! Whip!
Gum Gum Whip.
Yeah! All great fighters call out their finishing moves.
No, they don't.
This is probably the best anime adaptation I have ever seen, if not very close to some of the better ones I can think of. I mean, the only other one that really comes to mind immediately, I did enjoy the Alita Battle Angel movie. That's another discussion here, but I wouldn't even say that was like a perfect adaptation. That was something kind of different entirely too. But this, if you're looking at something that loves its source material, respects its source material, but gives you something for everyone to engage in, One Piece is it. It's fun. It's a great time. If you don't like anime, I don't know if that'll change your mind, but I think you're going to have a good time with this show. It's just it's full of so much fun and excitement. And I had a really good time. And again, it's made me a One Piece fan kind of all over again. I fell out of love with it a little bit while ago, and now I'm kind of back into it, and I can't wait to see the next adventures of the Straw Hats. This is a good time. You guys really shouldn't miss this. I mean, it's worth a binge. You're going to want to binge it after the first episode. I can kind of promise you that. Adam, how about you? What do you think on this one?
I'm going to give One Piece Season 1 a 9.8 as well.
So that's where it goes.
I think everything that it does for, everybody really, the anime and the manga lovers and the people that don't really like that, it just does so much for everything. And then the fact that it's just such an entry, a gateway into getting into One Piece, the monster that it is. It's so good. It's very well done.
And it's funny because I think this finally justifies how popular One Piece is in Japan. Because
Right,
when you go to
exactly.
Japan, One Piece is incredibly popular over there. It's been more popular than any of the bigger anime like Dragon Ball and all of them. One Piece has been number one for a very long time. I think the only thing that dethroned it recently, I think, was Demon Slayer was probably the closest thing. And that was only for a limited time. And then One Piece just shoots right back up after Demon Slayer's done. So One Piece has been around and it's been so popular, but this show really enforces why it's so good. It really is an endearing journey. Like, it's kind of its own odyssey of pirate adventure. And again, I just think it's incredibly well done. There's so much discussion you can have, and as much discussion as you want. If you want to have an in-depth discussion about character relationships, go for it. If you just want to see a rubber guy punch somebody in the face, have fun. I think there's a lot there to be had. Absolutely. Julie, how about you? What do you think of this one?
I'm going to be giving One Piece Season 1 a 9.8 out of 10 as well.
Well, that's my map. I'm gonna get it back. No matter who I have to kill.
Having very minimal background with the manga and the anime, I was able to jump right into this and enjoy it thoroughly. I'm looking forward to our next adventures on the high seas with them. And I just want more. And the world that they were able to create, that was in animation into live action is just astounding. So I'm hopeful that come award season, they get some kind of production design, costume, anything in those areas they need to be getting. So I'm very excited to see where we go from here.
I'd even recommend something in like the screenwriting adaptation department for
Yeah.
this, because I think it really should not be underestimated how well they were able to translate this story. And I think that was, again, besides the visuals being the obvious giant hurdle, the story itself is a hurdle itself to make this digestible for fans to enjoy without having to invest your whole life and soul into it to understand what's going on. And they did a phenomenal job with it. One Piece, I'm so glad it got renewed. I was so nervous. You never know what the way things are, especially with Netflix, what they approve, what they don't approve. I didn't know what was going to happen. And the story to come is even more interesting with some of the other crewmates we're going to meet and how they're going to adapt said crewmates into the show. Because honestly, at this point, it's been very tame with what they were able to adapt. But some of the other ones are going to be a little more complicated. And I can't wait to see what they do. Because, again, if you're a hardcore manga fan or a hardcore anime fan, this is just another way to enjoy One Piece. And this is how it should be viewed. It doesn't have to be the buy-all definitive edition. Because I don't think the anime is really either. I mean, really the manga is, I guess, if you're really looking at what is the definitive quote-unquote version. But again, this is just another way for people to enjoy it. So have a good time with it. Eat good, people. We got some good anime. It's finally happened. Everyone else, you're on notice now. I don't know. I mean, other anime shows, you're going to have a really, really high ceiling to kind of get to because One Piece did it. And you're always going to be compared to that now. So I kind of feel bad for other creators. Good luck with that. But, work harder. But let us know what you guys think. What was your favorite moment in One Piece? Did you guys have a favorite moment, favorite episode? Who's your favorite character? How much do you love Buggy the Clown on a scale of 1 to 10? Julie's like an 11 over there, obviously.
12 out
12
of 10.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, just let us know what you think. What are you excited for in the next upcoming seasons? I know they said there's at least 6 seasons potentially planned, but they could probably go a potential 12. That's a lot of show, but I'm hyped for it. I'm all in for it. Just make sure they complete it before I die. That's all I ask. I'd like to enjoy the whole series because we got a few more years to go, so I got to make sure we get there. But again, let me know what you guys think. We loved One Piece here. My name is Kevin. That's Adam and Julie. We are your real movie guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you next time.
If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.